Thank you for clicking back on this episode of Rank the Movies. I am Martin Prevost. Now it's May. We talked about the director Barry Sonnenfeld last week, and this week we're going to continue our talk of directors with Steven Spielberg. He's an iconic director. So I stopped at 11. I'm not going farther with his movies than my top 11. Plus, oddly enough, a lot of his other movies I've never seen. I really thought, he's made tons of movies. I'll have seen most of these. Haven't seen a lot more than the 11 I'm about to talk about. So, yeah. That's what I learned. Alright, so let's jump into this and talk about my 11 favorite Steven Spielberg movies. Starting with Jaws. People love Jaws, and I get it. I can see the appeal of this movie. I can see why, there's such a love for this film. Perfectly honest, I'm going to get killed for this, but I didn't care for it that much. It wasn't bad. I never felt the need to watch it a second time after I watched it the first time. I watched it, I went, I've watched Jaws! And that was basically where it ended. I don't know, I think it was so overhyped for me over the years of Jaws is the greatest terror ever. Jaws is the scariest thing. It won't want you to go in the water. I think it just got overhyped for me just through the years of being told it is such a good film that it just didn't meet the hype level I was given of it. So, it's not bad. It made the list. It still made the list, but I just wasn't as happy with Jaws as I hoped I would be going in. It's a story most people know. Shark in the water, it's eating people. You got Roy Schreider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss go out to try to stop it. And smile, you ugly bastard, it explodes. That's Jaws. Moving on. The Adventures of Tintin. I saw this one in theaters when it came out, and I genuinely enjoyed it. It was a fun animated film. There's nothing great about this movie. It's not one of the legendary Spielbergian films, nor should it be. I get why Jaws is a legendary film. I get it. I get why those films are what they are. But I enjoyed The Adventures of Tintin. I liked it. It's based on an old comic strip called The Adventures of Tintin, and it's about the main character, Tintin, who goes on, adventures. This one involves a pirate ship. It's a fun movie. If you've never seen The Adventures of Tintin, definitely check it out. It's worth the watch. Alright. 1941. This is considered one of Spielberg's worst films ever. Yeah, this is considered one of the worst movies Steven Spielberg ever made. Basically, it has this huge cast of actors, including Dan Aykroyd, Ned Beatty, John Belushi, Lauren Gray, Murray Hamilton, Christopher Lee, Tim Matheson, Toshiro Mifune, Warren Oates, Robert Stack, Trent Williams, and there are more. And it's about us getting into World War II. It takes place in 1941, right towards the end of it. It's like between Christmas and New Year's of 1941. So, right before the bombing of Pearl Harbor is where we are, or right after. I'm sorry, it's just after. They're already in the war. My brain's a little fuzzy on this movie, to be perfectly honest. I liked it. I've enjoyed it when I've decided to watch it. When I sat down with it, I've enjoyed it. I have a copy of it back there on my shelf, because I do find it amusing. Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi are really good in this movie. I get it. It's a little long. It's a little long for what it's doing. And the final line of this movie is, it's just amazing. A whole house has been destroyed by various tanks and Japanese submarines. This house has been destroyed, leveled. And the general, played by Robert Stack, just sits there, who's through this entire movie been saying 1941 is going to be America's year in the war, ends the movie, now that it's 1941 is basically over, goes, our year is going to be 1942. It's a great moment of that uplifting, yay America kind of stuff going on. I like 1941. I'm sorry I'm confuddled about elements of this movie. Same thing with Tintin. But they are good movies. I hope I've done enough of these where my word is at least good, that there is some quality behind these movies, whether you like them or not. There is something to be said about them being good. Again, didn't much care for rewatch value, didn't see the rewatch value in Jaws, so my opinion is only as good as my opinion is. Alright, moving on, we've got Schindler's List. Oskar Schindler makes a list of Jews he's going to save from going to concentration camps. That's what the movie is. Liam Neeson is in it. He does a great job. He plays Oskar Schindler. It's a good historical epic. I like it. It's a good movie. It's one... You have to be in the right mindset to watch it, though. I feel like it's not one you're just going to wake up one morning and go, I want to watch Schindler's List. You're going to sit there and you're going to think about watching it for a couple of days and then finally go, you know what? Today's the day I'm watching Schindler's List. I think that's how that movie goes. I think that's how that goes with that movie. It's a good movie. It is much like Jaws. It's one of the acclaimed Spielbergian films. 1941 is said to be one of the worst Spielbergian films. This one is said to be one of the great Spielbergian films. I get it. I see why. But again, you have to be in that right mindset to sit down and watch this movie. I keep a copy of it just because of that same reason. There's a bunch of movies on my collection, on my shelves, that I keep just because I might, build up to watching it. Another one is Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, which is right here, actually, since I can reach it. Schindler's List is somewhere over there. Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet is another one. It's just such a long movie. It's such a big movie, just like Schindler's List, that you have to be in that right mindset. But every once in a while you do. You get into that mindset where, man, I really want to watch this movie. And there's always a build to it. They're both really good movies. Schindler's List is a great Spielbergian film. Let's move on before I keep talking about Kenneth Branagh. Next, we've got Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm sorry, it's just Raiders of the Lost Ark. People call it Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's actually just Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's the Return of the Great Adventure, because that's what Spielberg and George Lucas were making, was the Return of the Great Adventure. I'm going to be honest, Indiana Jones I was never a giant, Indiana Jones nerd. There are other people who are giant Indiana Jones nerds. I'm just not. I liked Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a really good movie. I enjoyed the movie, but it's not topping this list. It's not way up there on the list. If you noticed, I'm going to give my own opinion. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Temple of Doom are both movies I ranked lower than Jaws. When I went, I'm only taking 11 of these movies. Those were two I immediately threw out. I think those are awful, awful films and have no reason to be part of the greater series. And I've moved on to the Lost World Jurassic Park. Completely by accident, but I guess we're doing it. So we're moving on from Raiders of the Lost Ark and moving on to Lost World Jurassic Park. It's a sequel to Jurassic Park. It's fun. It's nothing like the book. If you're reading the book and go, I'm going to go watch The Lost World Jurassic Park, don't. It is not. You're not getting the same thing. You are not getting the same. It's not the same as the book. But it is fun. You get Jeff Goldblum, who is actually brought back in the book, even though he dies in the first one. He is in the book as well. But you get Jeff Goldblum back playing Ian Malcolm, which is really fun. It's really great. They go to the second island. They find more dinosaurs now, free and just roaming, without cages. And it's that question of, do we just study them, or do we try to open another park? I think it's a really good movie. I think it's a really well-done movie. Honestly, the Jurassic Park series, the only one I don't like is Jurassic Park 3. That movie's trash. That movie is really, it's trash. Alright, next, let's talk about Lincoln. I like Lincoln. I like this movie. I thought Spielberg did a great job telling the story. I thought Daniel Day-Lewis was an awesome actor as Lincoln. Basically, it talks about Lincoln towards the end of his life, towards the end of the Civil War, and just everything that happened and went on with him to get us to the resolution of that war, and the return of the South, and just what Lincoln went through. It's got a great cast. There's so many great actors in this movie that it's hard to name them all right this second. But it's a very well done movie. I'm so sad it didn't live up to the Spielbergian hype of so many of his other movies, like, Schindler's List, like Jaws, and even like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It hasn't held up to those same standards, but I really like Lincoln, and I think it's a fun movie. I think it's a super enjoyable film. Alright, speaking of Indiana Jones, now we get to go back and talk a little more about Indiana Jones with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I love this movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark, I like. I like that movie. I think Temple of Doom is a giant steaming pile of shit, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is a smellier pile of shit. So now that we know my dookie levels of 2 of the Indiana Jones movies, I love this movie. I watched Last Crusade as a kid and went, this is such a good movie. I didn't care about the rest of the Indiana Jones series. By the way, when I was a kid, I didn't care. There are very few movie series where one installment for me is great all on its own, where it doesn't need to be taken with the other parts of the movie. Die Hard with a Vengeance is another example of this. I love watching that movie. I'll watch it whenever. I don't need to watch Die Hard and Die Hard 2 to watch Die Hard with a Vengeance. And I don't need to watch the other 2 Indiana Jones movies to watch Last Crusade. I will just throw that in and enjoy myself. It is such a well-done movie. Harrison Ford and Sean Connery are fan-friggin-tastic in it. Denholm Elliott is really fun in it. John Rhys Davis is great. It's a fun movie. If you're going to sit down, if you've never sat down with Indiana Jones, and you're going to, Raiders of the Lost Ark is fun. It's a good movie. Stomach through Temple of Doom. Get to Last Crusade. Super enjoy Last Crusade. And then throw the copy of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull firmly at the wall and watch it shatter. So, that's my thought of Indiana Jones. No franchise month. If I do franchise month too, no Indiana Jones. I've basically spoken my piece on it. Next up, Hook. Man, I enjoy Hook. I like Hook a lot. Again, if you remember back when I did the Barry Sonnenfeld video last week, I talked about Robin Williams and how I really like Robin Williams. This is another great Robin Williams piece right here is Hook. It's adult Peter Pan. Peter Pan left Neverland, grew up, and is now a father of his own. James Hook, played by Dustin Hoffman, figures out where Peter Pan is, goes to the real world and kidnaps his children to lure Peter back to Neverland. Peter then has to figure out how to be Peter Pan again to fight Hook and save his children. It is such a good movie. It is such a well-done epic. And honestly, Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman's performances are top-notch and are worthy of watching this movie just for them. It's a fun adventure film. Definitely check it out if you've never watched it before, and watch it with the family. This is a good family film. Alright, well, next up, we have Ready Player One. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really good book, and I was curious how they were going to bring it to the big screen, how they were going to make it into a movie. And I was very happily surprised with what they ended up bringing to the silver screen. I thought, man, did they do a good job with this? Because it has a lot of pop culture reference, and I get it, you can't get the license to every last one of them. And some of the pop culture references that make a lot of sense in the book, such as scene-for-scene reenactment of war games and Monty Python and the Holy Grail, it's great in a book because you can skip ahead and just start the reenactment and then skip forward. In a movie, that's really dull. Even the skipping forward, it's just super, super dull. So I like they didn't go that way. I like the choices Spielberg made and the creative made for this movie. I think it turned out really well. If you've never seen Ready Player One, basically the overall synopsis of both the book and the movie is we're now in the future where basically everyone lives in a VR simulator. There is the real world still, but most people, they work, they live inside, they go to school inside of this VR simulator known as the Oasis. The founder and creator of the Oasis has died and has left the entire Oasis, it's the company, his money, everything, to a person who can find 3 keys he has hidden that lead you to an Easter egg. Yeah, legitimately an Easter egg. Like the thing you'll find on old DVDs if you skip around enough. Yeah, Easter egg. And it's the quest of these people trying to find the egg. Finding the egg. It's been years and years and years, and finally, the first code is cracked by our main character, and the movie moves forward, and the book moves forward at the same time, telling the story of how this all happened, and what people who want to gain, because there's a lot of money and a lot of rules that can be changed in this oasis for someone who owns it, who can make ads and charge more for it. There's money to be made for being the guy who finds the Easter egg. Or you could leave it all the same because, you love it so much. So it's that kind of a question of a movie. It's a very good movie. I really enjoyed it. If you've never seen Ready Player One, check it out, read the book. They're both really good. Alright, now it's time for my favorite Spielberg movie of all time. So for those of you making a tally of all the Spielberg movies I've missed, I've never watched most of those. So, we're going to talk about Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park. This is a great movie. Man, this movie still holds up. Its mix of CG and animatronic works so well, it never looks dated. Like, I've seen a lot of movies where I go, man, that looks really good. And then 5 years later, I rewatch it going, man, that looks bad. Jurassic Park holds up. They bring it into higher definition, and it still holds up. It still has that same great and beautiful look to it that you want with this kind of a movie. I feel like I don't need to go into the plot of Jurassic Park. I feel like it's just one of those. It's a Spielbergian classic, right up there with Schindler's List, Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which regretfully I've never seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and all the other Spielbergian classics that are out there. It stands up there, and it's such a great movie. It's a movie worth checking out. If you've never sat down with Jurassic Park, don't worry about The Last World Jurassic Park. It's a good movie. Don't worry about Jurassic Park 3. It's bad. Don't worry about Jurassic World. It's good, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about Fallen Kingdom, which is also good. Don't worry about any of those, and just watch the original. Don't sit there and go, I gotta watch 4 other movies after I'm done with this one. Just watch the original if you've never seen it before. If you love it and you want to watch the other movies, great. But just give the original a chance if you've never seen it before. And also read the book. The book is really good. The changes they made make perfect sense, but the book is still a great story all on its own. Alright, so that's my talk about Steven Spielberg for this week, my Spielbergian lecture for you all. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we're talking about my favorite comedic director. That's right, he's made 11 movies, and I'm talking about all of them. I'm talking Mel Brooks. So, definitely come back and check that one out next week, because who doesn't love Mel Brooks? The man has made 11 movies, at least 9 of them are gems, 1 of them is probably passable, and 1 of them is awful, and you'll find out which one's which next week. If there's a Spielberg movie you're really pissed I missed, or if you're really angry I kind of, took a nice hot steamer on Jaws, definitely hit me up with a comment. I understand. Otherwise, hit subscribe if you want to make sure you see that Mel Brooks video, and to check out some of the old videos I've made. There's some good stuff there. And make sure you come back and check us out next week. Alright. Talk to you later. Have a good one.